What if I told you that behind the roaring guitars, the wild stage dives, and the thunderous applause, some of heavy metal's biggest icons were fighting battles no one could see? From backstage chaos to hotel rooms filled with silence, the price of fame for these stars came with a heavy cost. Their music may have electrified the world, but the pressure, pain, and addictions that haunted them off stage proved far deadlier. These are 20 heavy metal legends whose lives were tragically cut short by overdose. 20. Layne Staley. Layne Staley was the voice that defined a generation of darkness. Born in Kirkland, Washington in 1967, he grew up in a world where music was both an escape and a curse. By the time he joined Alice in Chains in the late 80s, Layne's howl had already been shaped by pain. The band's sound was heavy, sludgy, and raw, and Layne's lyrics cut deeper than most songs like Down in a Hole and Nutshell weren't just hits, they were confessions. Alice in Chains exploded in the grunge and metal scene, but as the crowds grew, so did Layne's isolation. He was open about his struggles with heroin, even as his body shrank and his appearances grew more sporadic. By the late 90s, Layne had become a ghost in his own band, rarely seen in public, his voice fading from the airwaves. In April 2002, Layne was found dead in his Seattle apartment, surrounded by drug paraphernalia. The autopsy confirmed what many feared. A lethal mix of heroin and cocaine, known as a speedball, had stopped his heart. He'd been dead for 2 weeks before anyone noticed. Layne's story is a brutal reminder of how addiction isolates, even when the world is listening. 19. Mike Starr. Mike Starr was the thundering low end of Alice in Chains, the guy whose bass lines made songs like Wood and Man in the Box feel like a punch to the chest. Born in Honolulu in 1966, Mike was there from the beginning, helping shape the band's heavy, brooding sound. But as the band climbed higher, Mike's struggles with addiction grew worse. He left Alice in Chains in 1993, citing his drug use as a major factor. For years, he drifted in and out of rehab, making headlines with his appearance on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. Mike was open about his pain, haunted by the loss of his friend Layne Staley and his own inability to get clean. In March 2011, Mike was found dead in a Salt Lake City home. The cause: a deadly mix of prescription drugs, including methadone and anxiety medications. He was 44. Mike's death came nearly a decade after Layne's, a grim echo of the band's history with addiction and loss. 18. Dave Leopard. Dave Leopard was the wild spark behind Swedish glam metal band Crosby, a frontman with a shock of blonde hair and a voice that could cut through the noise. Born in 1980, Dave founded the band in 2000, determined to bring sleaze metal back to life. Their debut album, Rest in Sleaze, was a blast of energy, and Dave was at the center of it all, writing songs about rebellion and heartbreak. But beneath the makeup and bravado, Dave was fighting demons. Friends and bandmates saw the syncoratic behavior, missed shows, the exhaustion that comes from living too fast. In January 2006, Dave was found dead in his apartment at just 25 years old. The official cause was a drug overdose, a tragic end for someone who seemed born to be on stage. Crosby would go on, but the hole Dave left was impossible to fill. 17. Andrew Wood. Andrew Wood was the flamboyant, charismatic singer who helped lay the foundation for Seattle's grunge explosion. Born in 1966, he fronted Mother Love Bone, a band that mixed glam swagger with heavy riffs. Andrew's stage presence was magnetish, was equal parts poet and rock star, with a voice that soared above the noise. But behind the scenes, Andrew was struggling with heroin addiction. Friends tried to help, but the pull was too strong. In March 1990, just days before Mother Love Bone's debut album was set to launch, Andrew slipped into a heroin-induced coma and never woke up. He died at 24, his promise unfulfilled. His death sent shockwaves through the Seattle music scene and directly inspired the formation of Pearl Jam, as his bandmates went on to create something new from the ashes of loss. 16. Scott Wyland. Scott Wyland was a chameleon, a frontman who could shift from snarling aggression to fragile vulnerability in a single verse. Born in 1967, he led Stone Temple Pilots through the 90s, with hits like Plush and Interstate Love Song, then reinvented himself with Velvet Revolver, alongside former Guns N' Roses members. But Scott's battles with addiction were as public as his music. He cycled through rehab, arrests, and comebacks, each time returning to the stage with something to prove. In December 2015, Scott was found dead on his tour bus in Minnesota. The toxicology report was grim: cocaine, ethanol, and MDA, along with prescription drugs. He was 48, his body finally giving out after decades of struggle. Scott's death was another chapter in rock's long history of talent lost to addiction, a reminder that the spotlight can't cure what's broken inside. 15. Pete Way. Pete Way was the wild man of UFO, a bassist whose thunderous playing and onstage antics helped define British hard rock. Born in 1951, Pete was there for the band's classic albums Lights Out, Obsession, Strangers in the Night, and his influence stretched far beyond UFO, inspiring countless metal and hard rock musicians. But Pete's lifestyle was as hard as his music. Decades of heavy drinking and drug use took a toll on his body, leading to serious liver damage. He survived heart attacks and cancer, but his health never fully recovered. In August 2020, Pete died at 69. The official cause listed as injuries from an accident, but his long history of substance abuse was a shadow over his final years. Pete's story is one of survival and excess, a life lived at full volume until the very end. 14. Mia Zapata. Mia Zapata was the fierce, soulful voice of the Gits, a punk band that tore through Seattle's underground in the early 90s. Born in 1965, Mia was known for her raw lyrics and electric stage presence, a woman holding her own in a male-dominated scene. While her death was not from an overdose, she was murdered in 1993. Mia's life was intertwined with the heavy music world, and she struggled with the same temptations that haunted so many of her peers. Friends and bandmates have spoken about the substance use that was common in their circle, the late nights and hard living that defined the era. Mia's murder shocked the music world, but her story is also a reminder of the risks faced by artists living on the edge, both from within and without. 13. Randy Rhodes. Randy Rhodes was a guitar prodigy, the young virtuoso who helped reinvent Ozzy Osbourne's sound in the early 80s. Born in 1956, Randy's playing on Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman set a new standard for metal guitarists everywhere. Offstage, Randy was known for his dedication to music and his struggle with the pressures of fame. While he didn't die from an overdose, he was killed in a plane crash in 1982. At just 25, those close to him have spoken about the temptations and excesses that surrounded the band. Randy tried to avoid the worst of it, but the chaos of the rock lifestyle was never far away. His death was sudden and tragic, a reminder that not all casualties in rock come from drugs, but many are shaped by the same relentless environment. 12. Paul Gray. Paul Gray was the masked enigma at the heart of Slipknot, a bassist whose pounding rhythms and songwriting helped create one of metal's most intense bands. Born in 1972, Paul was there from the beginning, helping turn Slipknot from a local curiosity into a global force. But behind the mask, Paul was fighting a losing battle with addiction. He tried to get clean, entering rehab and seeking support from friends and family. But the grip of opioids was too strong. In May 2010, Paul was found dead in a hotel room in Iowa, the result of an accidental overdose of morphine and fentanyl. He was 38. The loss was devastating for Slipknot and their fans, a stark example of how addiction can claim even those who seem larger than life. 11. Steve Clark. Steve Clark wasn't just a guitarist, was the architect of Def Leppard's biggest anthems, the man whose riffs powered Pour Some Sugar on Me and Photograph. Born in Sheffield in 1960, Steve joined Def Leppard as a teenager, quickly becoming the band's creative engine. But the pressure to keep delivering hits, to keep the machine running, became too much. Steve turned to alcohol and prescription drugs, mixing painkillers and tranquilizers to numb the stress. His bandmates watched him fade, but the tours kept coming, the deadlines never stopped. In January 1991, Steve was found dead in his London home. The cause: respiratory failure from a lethal cocktail of alcohol, codeine, Valium, and morphine. He was 30. Steve's death was a slow-motion tragedy, the result of years of silent suffering behind the music. 10. Cliff Burton. Cliff Burton wasn't just Metallica's bassist, he was the band's backbone, the wild card who brought classical influences and a sense of musical adventure that set Metallica apart. Born in 1962 in California, he joined Metallica in 1982 and quickly became the soul of their early sound. Cliff was known for his laid-back attitude, bell-bottom jeans, and a love for everything from Bach to Black Sabbath. But while his music was disciplined, his world was chaos. The early Metallica scene was notorious for its heavy drinking and drug use: whiskey, beer, weed, and whatever else could keep the party going. Cliff was right in the middle of it, known for his fondness for psychedelics and his ability to outlast almost anyone at an after-party. The band's tour bus was a rolling circus of excess, and Cliff thrived in the madness, never letting it slow down his creativity. But the road was unforgiving. In September 1986, while on tour in Sweden, Metallica's bus crashed and Cliff was thrown from his bunk and killed instantly at just 24. He didn't die from an overdose, but the world he lived in was shaped by the same relentless, reckless energy that claimed so many of his peers. 9. Hillel Slovak. Hillel Slovak was the original fire behind the Red Hot Chili Peppers, the guitarist whose blend of funk, punk, and metal helped create their signature sound. Born in Israel in 1962, Hillel moved to Los Angeles as a child and fell in love with music early, forming the band with his high school friends. The Chili Peppers' early days were wild. Shows were chaotic, clothes were optional, and drugs were everywhere. Hillel's playing was electric, but his heroin use became a shadow over everything. Friends saw him spiralhade, disappear for days, miss rehearsals, and come back haunted. The band tried interventions, but nothing stuck. On June 25, 1988, Hillel was found dead in his apartment, a victim of a heroin overdose at just 26. His death shattered the band and nearly ended the Chili Peppers before they really began. 8. Chris Bell. Chris Bell was the tortured genius behind Big Star, a band that never sold millions but inspired generations. Born in Memphis in 1951, Chris was a songwriter, crafting perfect pop with a raw, emotional edge. But the music industry was brutal. Big Star's albums flopped commercially, and Chris fell into depression, battling addiction to heroin and pills. He left the band, tried to go solo, but the darkness followed him. On December 27, 1978, Chris died in a car crash after losing control of his vehicle. The autopsy revealed he had opiates in his system, suggesting a combination of drug use and tragedy. He was only 27, another member of the infamous 27 Club, his life cut short by a mix of bad luck and bad habits. 7. Kevin Dubo. Kevin Dubo was the voice that made Quiet Riot a household name, a frontman with a scream that could shatter glass and a personality just as loud. Born in Los Angeles in 1955, Kevin helped take Quiet Riot from the Sunset Strip to the top of the charts with 1983's Metal Health, the first heavy metal album to hit #1 on Billboard. But the pressure of fame and the endless party took their toll. Kevin's drug of choice was cocaine, and he used it to keep the energy up long after the crowds went home. Friends noticed the change's erratic behavior, mood swings, isolation, but the machine kept rolling. In November 2007, Kevin was found dead in his Las Vegas home. The cause: an accidental cocaine overdose. He was 52, another casualty of the same scene he helped create. 6. Janney Lane. Janney Lane was the songwriter and voice behind Warrant's biggest hits, Cherry Pie, Heaven, and more. Born in Ohio in 1964, he seemed to have it all: looks, talent, and a knack for writing hooks that stuck in your head for days. But behind the scenes, Janney was fighting a losing battle with alcohol. He left Warrant, came back, tried solo projects, but the bottle was always there. Arrests, rehab, and failed relationships followed. On August 11, 2011, Janney was found dead in a motel room in Woodland Hills, California, surrounded by empty liquor bottles. The coroner ruled it acute alcohol poisoning. He was 47, gone in silence after years of living loud. 5. Dave Alexander. Dave Alexander was the original bassist for the Stooges, the band that helped invent punk. Born in Michigan in 1947, Dave was quiet but essential, laying down the heavy, hypnotic bass lines on the band's first 2 albums. But the lifestyle was as destructive as the music was raw. Dave started drinking as a kid, and by the time the Stooges were making noise, he was deep into alcoholism. He was fired in 1970 for being too drunk to play, and his health spiraled. In 1975, Dave died from pulmonary edema, fluid in the lungs caused by years of drinking. He was just 27, another founding member of the 27 Club. 4. Roz Williams. Roz Williams was the Gothic prince of Christian death, a band that blurred the lines between death rock, punk, and metal. Born Roger Allen Painter in 1963, Roz was a visionary, creating music that was as dark as it was beautiful. But the darkness wasn't just on stage. Roz struggled with heroin addiction for years, using the drug to numb the pain that haunted him. On April 1, 1998, Roz was found dead in his Los Angeles apartment, the result of a heroin overdose. He was 34, his life ending as dramatically as his music often sounded. 3. Jason Mizell. Jason Mizell, better known as Jam Master Jay, was the DJ for Run DMC, a group that helped bring hip-hop and rock together. Born in Brooklyn in 1965, Jay was known for his skill on the turntables and his cool under pressure. While his official cause of death was a gunshot wound, he was murdered in his Queens studio in 2002. Jay's life was not untouched by the temptations of the scene. Friends and collaborators have spoken about the substance use that was common in their circle, and Jay himself battled his own demons, though he kept them mostly out of the spotlight. His story is a reminder that the dangers facing musicians come from all sides. 2. Ben McMillan. Ben McMillan was the gritty voice of Gruntruck, a Seattle band that mixed metal, grunge, and punk into something raw and urgent. Born in 1961, Ben was a fixture of the Seattle scene, known for his powerful vocals and intense stage presence. But like so many of his peers, Ben struggled with heroin addiction. The pressures of the scene, the endless touring, and the darkness that came with it all proved too much. In January 2008, Ben died of a heroin overdose. Another voice silenced in a city that lost too many too soon. 1. Robin Crosby. Robin Crosby was the towering guitarist for Rat, a band that defined the glam metal era with hits like Round and Round. Born in 1959, Robin was larger than life on stage and off, but his heroin use became legendary for all the wrong reasons. Years of addiction ravaged his body, and in the 1990s, Robin was diagnosed with HIV, which developed into AIDS. He spent his final years in and out of hospitals, openly discussing his struggles and warning others about the dangers of drugs. On June 6, 2002, Robin died from a heroin overdose and complications related to AIDS. He was 42, a cautionary tale from the heart of the Sunset Strip. And there you have it, 20 heavy metal icons, whose lives ended far too soon, leaving behind a legacy of sound, chaos, and tragedy. Their stories are a powerful reminder that even legends can fall under the weight of fame and addiction. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment below and share your thoughts or memories of these artists. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into music history. Tap that bell icon so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching.